The Fourth Wise Man, taken from The Other Wise Man by Henry Van Dyke. There lived in ancient Persia, in the city of Ecbatana, a certain man named Artaban. He was a member of a far-flung community of Zoroastrian scholars known as Magi. Zoroastrians were astrologers and believed in the search for goodness and light. Artaban tells his fellow Magi that soon he will join 3 other Magi, and together they will search for the promised one to be born king of Israel. Selling his possessions, Artaban bought 3 jewels, a sapphire, a ruby, and a pearl. He would carry them as tribute to the king. Thus begins Artaban's journey. He had only 10 days to meet his 3 companions at the great mound of Nimrod and the temple of the 7 spheres. But as Artaban neared the temple at the appointed time, he came upon a dying man lying in the road. Would Artaban give a cup of water to a dying man, or would he press on to meet his Zoroastrian companions? Because Magians are physicians as well as astrologers, Artaban stopped. Hour after hour, he labored, as only a skillful healer of disease can do, and at last the man's strength returned. Pressing on, Artaban discovered that his friends had gone on without him. He was forced to sell his sapphire to buy a train of camels and provision for his journey. He arrived in Bethlehem just as the cruel soldiers of King Herod were killing the baby boys of Bethlehem. The door of one dwelling was open, and Artaban could hear a mother singing a lullaby to her child. The woman told him that it was now the 3rd day since the 3 wise men had appeared in Bethlehem. They had found Joseph and Mary and the young child and had laid their gifts at his feet, and then they had disappeared as mysteriously as they had come. Joseph had taken his wife and baby that same night and had secretly fled. It was whispered that they were going far away into Egypt. Then suddenly outside there arose a wild confusion of sounds. Women were shrieking. Then a desperate cry said, "The soldiers of Herod are killing the children." Artaban went to the doorway and found a band of soldiers coming hurrying down the street with dripping swords and bloody hands. The captain approached the door, and Artaban stopped and gave him the ruby and requested to leave the mother and the baby alive. Then Artaban, still following the king, went on into Egypt, seeking everywhere for traces of the little family that had fled before him from Bethlehem. For 33 years, Artaban continued looking for the king, spending his years helping the poor and the dying, before at last coming to Jerusalem during the season of Pentecost. There was a great commotion in Jerusalem, and suddenly a slave girl being dragged by soldiers broke away from her tormentors and threw herself at Artaban's feet. Taking the last of his treasures, the pearl, he gave it to the girl. "This is thy ransom, daughter. It is the last of my treasures, which I kept for the king." And while Artaban spoke, a powerful earthquake shook the city, and he was struck by a roof tile. Artaban knew that he was dying. He would not find the king. The quest was over, and he had failed. The ransomed slave girl, holding the old dying man, heard a sweet voice, and then saw Artaban's lips slowly move. Artaban said, "Ah, Master, I have long sought you. Forgive me. Once I had precious gifts to give, and now I have nothing." And Jesus said, "Artaban, you have already given me your treasures." Artaban replied, "I don't understand, my God." But the unmistakable voice came again, and the maid heard it clearly. Jesus said, "When I was hungry, you gave me to eat, and when I was thirsty, you gave me to drink, and when I was naked, you clothed me, and when I was homeless, you took me in." Artaban said, "Oh, no, not so, my Savior. I never saw you hungry, nor thirsty. I never clothed you, and I never brought you into my home. 33 years have I looked for you, but I have never seen your face, nor ministered to you, my King. I've never seen you until now." And Jesus replied, "Whenever you did these things for the least of my brothers, you did them for me." Artaban replied, "Did you hear?" A long breath of relief exhaled gently from Artaban's lips. His journey was ended. His treasures were accepted. The other wise men had found the king. The king will reply, "I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me."